totally dependable, plumbing and electrical. 0800 get laser.
Celebrating 25 years of Laser, I'm Kyle, the GM of Laser Group, and this is Laser Across the Network, where legacy meets leadership.
And so, we're able to spot trends, see who's doing well, and then let's share that knowledge and those best practices in the network, because I think the group has a real role to play in generating insights and looking at the future and trends and things, but also from our members. At the end of the day, 2 heads are better than 1 and 100 heads are better than 2, and Trans-Tasman, 200 plus heads are better than that again.
Hey, so Ash Clemmett, O'Brien Network in Australia, which is the Laser O'Brien Network in Australia. What we want to do today is talk about the benefit of a Trans-Tasman relationship and that shared history and how it's benefited the network, member growth and those sorts of things. Can you give a better introduction to yourself than what I've given?
I'm Ash Clemmett. I'm the Head of Commercial and Systems at the O'Brien business over here in Australia. I'm based in Sydney. I'm clicking up 20 years in the company here later this month. A long storied history in the business. Obviously, I used to work for Laser in the New Zealand company way back in the day, and born and raised, I suppose, in the business, and came through the ranks and moved over to Australia in 2005 as part of the expansion of the Laser business back then into the Australian market. So yeah, really fortunate. Been in lots of different roles over the years. These days, look after a lot of our technology, national customers, and a few other things. So it's a nice mixed role for me.
It's a man of many hats, and I think for that positioning of your career since 20 years, 2005, there's a lot that you've seen both from a New Zealand perspective and as we've grown in the Australian perspective of what I think about as cross-pollination. So, how do you see the Trans-Tasman relationship today between Laser and O'Brien?
Well, there's still lots of synergies between the business, and I think that comes from that shared heritage. The benefit for us to share best practices, Trans-Tasman, I think there's probably more similarities between the businesses than differences. We're in the same trades, in the same space in Australia and New Zealand markets, whilst economically can be different at times. I think it's very, very similar markets. So, for us, you don't need to recreate the wheel. If the New Zealand teams come up with a really good idea, we want to know about it over here in Oz and how can we replicate it.
And you just talked there about shared connections. Now, it's 2025 now, but last year was the first year that we'd brought our 2 networks together for a conference for some period of time. And I've seen a lot of benefits from that reconnection. How have you seen that benefit members in terms of their growth and their opportunity to share stories and learn from one another?
We've seen a lot of connection, and you're right, Kyle. I think COVID kind of broke the Trans-Tasman events that we were doing. It's fantastic to come back together in Wellington last year, and off the back of that, we've even seen examples now where New Zealand members talking more regularly to Australian members. A couple of the New Zealand members travel over to Australia to visit other businesses and learn from them and see what they're doing, and vice versa. So if we're going to New Zealand, let's go and visit some members in Auckland and Napier and Wellington, and you really get around the network and learn from each other. We've got some great resources in both businesses. It's an opportunity for us to sort of share them. So, that's even the opportunity for us to use, Matt, who works in my team, providing some webinars to members on a monthly basis for systems training.
So what you've talked about, there's probably a couple of things for me which are really neat as well. And even going back last year to conference where New Zealand bring in a couple of our own suppliers, which have now been exported into Australia to great success. Because if you see the success here in New Zealand, then you want to replicate that across the ditch and vice versa, particularly with a couple of those software partners that you guys have in Aussie now being imported into the New Zealand market. So how do you see that suite of systems and suppliers across both networks having a finger in that success of the networks?
Post the conference, we've started working with Mighty over here in the Australian market, and that came straight off the interactions we had with them at the Wellington conference. And I know, there are some new specialist software partners that the New Zealand business is now onboarding off the success we've had in the last 12 months in the same space. So I think that's really cool that we can sort of share those. And I think the Laser Pro ecosystem continues to evolve, and, working with these more specialist software partners that have full integrations to Laser Pro. If we find something that works really well, it's amazing to be able to share that success. We're leveraging off the total size of the network. So, we're able to get better discounts for members on software licensing, the opportunity to work, whether it's with a Simpro or a Google or a Xero or, some of these other specialist software partners now. I think there's huge advantages there for us.
Part of your responsibilities, Ash, see deep integration or interaction with those partners yourself. You had Google turn up to conference, you speak yourself at a lot of Simpro events, but from a member perspective, how do you see them leveraging those systems and that scale that we've got in terms of supporting themselves or developing their teams, those sorts of things?
Yeah, and you're right. I do get wheeled out to guest speak at different events from time to time.
I think that's my language.
I think that really just comes from, why do I end up speaking at some of those things? I think it's just some of it's the experience and the great partnerships and relationships we have. We talk about Simpro. I mean, I started working on that project back in 2012. Here we are, 2025. So it's been a long time that we've worked with these partners, and it's something that I'm really proud of as a business, that, we don't chop and change partners and providers every 5 minutes. We have like really long-term partnerships. And I think that adds a lot of value to the member network, just like the group and our members have very, very long-term partnerships. That's really where I think year after year that sort of value compounds, and we're really showing the market that we're an industry leader and should get on board.
Yeah, you've mentioned Laser Pro, but I've talked about maybe being wheeled out to a Simpro event. Sometimes we might get feedback, Ash, that is, we've got Laser Pro, but we can buy that off the shelf as an independent business. Where do you see the benefits to your experience, your expertise, the scale, those sorts of things, where it does create a real competitive advantage for members?
Like all systems, yeah, there are lots of things that you can buy off the shelf, but buying it off the shelf and then actually properly implementing it and using it are two different things. And I think, we've had lots of businesses that have joined us over the years that had probably outgrown the systems that they were on or hadn't fully implemented the ones they have. Part of the value that the Laser and the O'Brien business adds to our members is in that technology space, helping members to use the system properly and getting the full benefit out of it. I've sort of dubbed the term over here, it's the untapped systems potential. Got this latent capacity in our businesses with technology, and we're just not making the most of it. So, that's been a big focus for us over many years now, is helping members to use the tools that they have better and get more efficiency in their business. And a lot of that's through training, but to be honest, it's also through that peer networking. So members learning from other members, seeing how they use the tools and getting inspiration. And that's what I really like when, members have the opportunity to, whether it's visiting another member or talking to them online, if you can see how someone uses it and take back some of those ideas and implement them in your business, I think that's where the real value is. But the other part of the value proposition is really around the pricing as well. So yeah, you can go and get it off the shelf, but you're going to pay retail for it. And then once you're using that, you're one small customer in an ocean of thousands of clients. The benefit that Laser has is we're a very big customer to these software businesses, and they treat us as such. They look after us.
Now, we've spoken a lot just now about operational job management software. We talked earlier about some of those more bespoke or boutique sort of offerings, but you've been quite instrumental, I know, in establishing Fathom as a benchmarking tool for our members. What is Fathom? Why has it helped? What is benchmarking?
Back in the day when we used to do benchmarking for members, it was templated spreadsheets, and we only did it quarterly at best, half yearly most of the time, because the time to export all the data from the members' accounting systems and then spreadsheet them up and then do the benchmarking. By the time we gave the members the benchmarking data, 5 months had gone past. Yep. It's old news. Yeah, exactly. So when tools like Fathom came along, and I had the opportunity to review that product and then recommend it and implement it for the business Trans-Tasman, that was really a bit of a revelation for us, something that is bringing basically real-time data. It's from the accounting system every day. It's updating, it's automating that benchmarking. It's giving us way more insights. It was a pretty profound change to the way that we can support members, really understanding their data and moving away from spreadsheets, which for a lot of our members, they're visual learners. That looking at a big spreadsheet of numbers, some people love that, but a lot of people don't. So tools like Fathom bring data to life. It's very visual. It's live graphs. It's trend information. You're viewing it in a much more visual way.
Yeah, and I'm biased towards Fathom. I've seen it. I believe in it, and I know it's a wicked tool. I think it's a bit of a superpower, but it's a tremendous tool from the perspective of a trades business owner might talk to their accountant once every so often and get slid a piece of paper that goes, congratulations, you've made a profit or not for the period, where you're right, it's live, it's visual. But the real thing for our network is what I call co-opetition. And so that benchmarking is actually plotting members out on a graph to go, you are here, you are at the midpoint, and people immediately go, well, shit, how do I get into the top quartile? And how do I improve from that? And so where have you seen those sorts of behaviours and that co-opetition benefit members yourself?
A lot of members, when they join us, think they're going pretty well as a business, and often they are going well. But I think when they see a league ladder and they're not at the top of it, they're like, oh, wow. as a standalone business owner, you're not really accountable to anyone except yourself. Maybe your partner, maybe the bank manager, but other than that, you're kind of running your own race. And sometimes without having that friendly competition around you, like what's actually spurring you on to do better in your business. So I think, the benchmarking data and the ranking and, seeing where you fit, you might be doing a fantastic job on revenue, but your gross profit's not really there and you're off by 5 points. Well, why are you off? How are you off? Which members are further ahead than you? And then go and find out, go and talk to them. And I suppose your BPM can help a lot in that space too. They're seeing the data from all of these businesses all the time. And so, we're able to spot trends, see who's doing well, and then let's share that knowledge and those best practices in the network, because I think the group has a real role to play in generating insights and looking at the future and trends and things, but also from our members. At the end of the day, 2 heads are better than 1 and 100 heads are better than 2, and Trans-Tasman, 200 plus heads are better than that again.
Your revenue might be all right, but your gross profit's down by 5 points. Now, a member in isolation might think that they've tapped out at that. And then when they're put on that leaderboard, for want of a better term, that's the co-opetition as I talk about it, because they're actually learning and happy to share some of the secrets and tips from a collaborative point of view. I think that's really important. You also spoke, Ash, about having Matt, run webinars and series in terms of that, but you've also got Caitlin and the team who helps cross-pollinate over here in New Zealand. What are the purposes, or what's the purpose and the benefits of those webinars?
You can have the best tools, but if you're not using them properly, you're not getting the full value, and you've got that untapped systems potential there. So, between myself and Caitlin and Matt, we've got over 30 years of experience in the Simpro environment, which is huge. So it's been a great add to the network overall, Trans-Tasman, having some of those extra resources come on board in the last few years. If we can help our members to use the tools better every month and just keep chipping away at things and getting that continuous improvement for the members in the network, I think that's really important. These are things that other businesses have to pay a lot of money to do, and we provide it to our members at no cost. And I think that's another real benefit for the network, that between myself and Caitlin and Matt, and talking to the BPMs in the New Zealand market, we're asking them, hey, what are the challenges that your members are having out in the network? What are some of the areas that we could touch on? And then we'll build some of that training content around that. So I think it does come from a two-way feedback mechanism.
You talk about the BPMs as well, but oftentimes business owners, I think, take on too much themselves, and the opportunity for webinars, as I see it, is micro-learning, not for those people who thus don't need to be experts in everything, but they're accessible via their team. Now, that might be the team on the tools, how to use a mobile app. It could be adoption of Gemini, which I want to talk about shortly, or it could be the administrative person who isn't learning how to invoice, but how to use notifications and scripts to make them more efficient, right? So it's not the business owner driving everything. I talked about Google and Gemini, mate. So you see a lot of innovation in your role and where the market's going. Talk quickly about AI and how we're helping members bite down on what is quite a chunky and fast evolving subject.
It's very fast evolving. A couple of years ago at conferences, we were sort of talking about AI as being just on the horizon. It's just over there and it's going to do all these amazing things. And then last year at the conference, it was, no, actually, we're live demoing how you can use AI right now in your business. And fast forward another year and things are changing even more. So, I think AI is going to be, or not is going to be, it is already a major disruptor, both positively and negatively in the market. The opportunity for us to help our members get ahead of the curve, not try and learn all these things or try and find it themselves, investigate it themselves. I think that's, again, another opportunity the group has to help upskill members in this area and showcase how you can use tools like Gemini. Last year at the conference, we had Tibor from Simpro. So he's one of the senior engineers at Simpro, came on stage and talking about what's the future of AI for our Laser Pro environment. And like all software companies, Simpro is also heavily investing in this space, and really exciting to see them starting to roll out some of their first AI tools in the system, helping technicians clean up their job notes, helping staff to summarize quotes easier and things like that. But I think the future in this space, how can we use AI to do more efficient scheduling? How can we use AI to follow up quotes when they need to be followed up, not by rules set up in notifications that are very hard and fast? So, and another exciting area I've been talking to Simpro about is AI reporting. So rather than going and running manual reports in Laser Pro all the time, or not, how can you have AI say, hey, there's a trend change in your business, here's a report you need to look at. I think that's sort of the future of where, a lot of this technology is going to go.
I feel like today we've got this evolved marketplace of almost AI overload, and it might be like a menu where you can go out and choose 50 things, and you go, well, there's too many options, I don't know what to choose. And I feel like the way that you're engaging with our suppliers is it's like, well, we've got this option of 50 things, but through those engagements, here are the 4 best things to do and to eat and to evolve in. And one of those things, a company that's got AI voice calling, and you can coach that into what you want it to say, because it can listen to your phone calls and then go out and replicate them and make those follow-ups for you. And I'm not saying to anyone, go out and do that now, but that's just where it's going and how it's going to help business owners into the future, right?
Yeah, and I think even using, tools like that one that you've just mentioned, it's effectively an AI voice receptionist, basically, to help, even if it's just for overflow. So if you're already on the phone talking to someone else, another client, can AI answer the phone for you? Even if it's just to say, hey, sorry, Kyle's in a meeting at the moment, but hey, what were you calling about? Can I get him to ring you back? And they'll actually have a conversation and get some info out of the client or the supplier rather than, just leaving a voicemail, but even for after hours calls as well. So things like that, it's not necessarily going to replace all of our people, but it's certainly going to help to make us a lot more efficient. Hopefully what the group's seeing and the members are seeing is that, we're trying to provide some leadership and direction in this space and help our members sort of cut through all that chaff and get to the core of tried and tested things that are already ready to go, already integrated. I think that's the best opportunity.
And the other thing's cost, right? And I guess what we're trying to do from a leadership perspective too is consolidate these things and partner with the best. And so we're not paying multiple providers to deliver 4 or 5 different things, but we've got 1 or 2 that can do that for us and save costs through that osmosis sort of thing. Hey, there's something else from a Trans-Tasman perspective where you have quite a strong operational bent, and that's around the events and the conferences and things like that. Where do you see the benefit for bringing scale to an event such as ours, and how do we like to run those?
Benefiting from that scale, right? So we can have a bigger, better event with a bigger budget without members having to necessarily pay more for it, and we can deliver a lot more. I think also having more members together is more people to learn from, more stories that can be shared between the different members in the network. So there's definitely some benefit there. And the second thing that's different about our events over an industry event or a trade night or something like that you might do with a supplier is you go to those events and everyone in the room is your direct competitor. They aren't there to help you. They don't want to help you grow. If you grow, you're probably taking one of their clients. Whereas, I've had lots of members that have joined us over the years where you see them on the welcome night of a conference. They're like, wow, I get it now. They come and see the size and scale of the network and how many people are there to collaborate and learn from. So I've been to plenty of industry events and it's, how's the weather? How's the footy? What are you doing on the weekend? There's not a lot of business chat in those sorts of things.
Are you busy, mate?
A little bit of bluff and bravado too. Everyone's always creaming it, making the most money, and no one's really there to share.
We've spoken about the ecosystem across suppliers and maybe some of those main ones there with Laser Pro, with Fathom, with Google. We've touched on some of those other, not ancillary suppliers, but those ones that add a little bit of value through the other sorts of relationships. You even touched on Mighty there for a Trans-Tasman now marketing agency and the benefits that come from that. But for you, if you were to wrap with 2 or 3 things that you would encourage, whether you're an independent business owner listening or a member listening, what are 2 or 3 things you would recommend doing to those people?
First of all, for our existing members, go back and look in the toolbox of what's available to you. I think it's a great opportunity to talk to your BPM and say, what aren't I taking advantage of? I think there's been lots of things that we've rolled out over the years, and sometimes the timing might not have been right for the member 4 or 5 years to adopt, whether it's a new system or a new marketing strategy or new specialty software suppliers coming on board that are fully integrated to Laser Pro, whether it be for dashboarding or the CRM that we've just been talking about with voice reception and things like that. So there's also partners that we've been with for a long time, people like Groundplan that lots of members use and get a huge amount of value out of, and you get a discount on all those things. You might not realize it, but you're saving money on these things just by being in the network, which is really exciting. And I think for someone that's not in our network yet, you don't have to try and find all these tools yourself. Being part of the Laser network, we can do that work for you. We can innovate. We can find new providers. We can do a lot of the research and do that in partnership with members and with member feedback. But we can bring a lot of things to the table that, you as a business owner who are very, very busy, and we appreciate that, You don't have to go out and try and investigate all these things and find out which is the right fit for me. And then when you find it, we can help you on how to implement it. Particularly with a lot of these partners that we have in the software space, they bend over backwards for our members and are really proactive on wanting to support them, provide them with training, because they do value that long-term relationship that they're able to build with a group like ours.
And to that point about those suppliers who'll bend over backwards, there was one recently you helped introduce. You were talking about dashboarding. We spoke about financial metrics that we can look at. Now, that might be revenue per site worker per day, but talking to this business from Aussie, and as we import them into New Zealand, we said, have you considered doing this? And they said, we haven't, but that's something that your scale can enable us to deliver, and that's something where influence of members and the feedback that they give is very, very important to create that differentiator or that competitive advantage that our members enjoy and maybe don't necessarily appreciate.
Yeah, a cracking example of that. So I sit on Simpro's customer advisory board and able to, I suppose, meet their CEO on a very regular basis and the head of product and, all those sorts of things and provide that feedback in. And it was raised that they were, one of their AI engineers was looking to get more information on the field, and he was based in Auckland. And they were saying, it'd be great if he could get out in the field and actually see what a real technician does. And I said, well, do you want me to organize that? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well,
got 200 of them out on the road.
Yeah, we got heaps of them. Do you want me to tee it up? So within, I think it was less than 2 weeks of that just being a passing comment in a customer advisory board meeting, we had a Simpro AI engineer in an electrician's van driving all around Auckland for a day. The engineer sent like a glowing email back to us afterwards, thanking us and saying, mate, this added so much value because I was able to see how not just our end customer uses the software, but their technician out on the front lines and understand how can AI help technicians in the future.
You started that with, I've got a cracking story of this, and I think that's a cracking story both to tell, but to finish on it from the perspective of how you help bridge that operational supplier member almost ecosystem yourself and with the team and with the support from both New Zealand and Australia for real benefit for members. So I just want to say thanks. You've delivered some really neat tips there to your point, and you finished with a story which really illustrates that value that's derived from that. So for me, across this side of the ditch, mate, it's been bloody good to see you. I know we don't catch up. We catch up a lot, but it still feels like it's not often enough, and I really appreciate the time to chat and to share those stories.
Thanks again. Cheers, Cole.
See you, mate.
If you've enjoyed the episode, subscribe, like and follow where you get all your podcasts. Give us a review and find us at lasergroup.co.nz. And here's to another 25 years.
0800 get laser.